Hello, audience. I'm your host, Kenny Young, and I have a special guest on, Mr. Sam Prater, who is a founder of his own nonprofit organization, Los Angeles Room and Board, servicing community college kids with homes, but also feeding them meals and helping them bridge the gap on finishing their college education. Mr. Sam has his doctorate in educational leadership and policy from Cal State Northridge. He began his LA Room and Board organization in 2020. Sam, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, Kenny Young? How you feeling, brother?
Man, I'm good, man. Very good.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Good to have you on the show, man. I want to talk a little bit about your background. Tell me a little bit. You're a Detroit kid. They say Detroit fellas have a different mantra to them, a different step to them, and abide by some different rules. What was it like growing up in Detroit, Michigan, as a kid? Especially being the 12th child out of 14 kids from your parents.
Yeah, man. Detroit was a fun place to grow up, man. I had a great childhood, I can't lie. You know what I mean? But we were kind of sheltered a bit, we were born and raised in the church, and so my parents were super strict about, what I mean, like faith and religion. But it was great. I had a big family. There was lots of laughter, lots of love. But yeah, and Detroit, again, it's one of those cities in the Midwest where hard work matters, right? And it's a town that is scrappy. It's a town that has so much promise, potential, and Detroit is doing it right now. You know what I mean? Like it has, kind of like it's this experiencing this renaissance right now that is beautiful. And so I'm proud to be from Detroit. What up, though?
Yeah, what up, though? Yeah, I listened to a few Detroit artists. That one of my friends in Los Angeles used to play on the Rams together, and he used to play a bunch of Detroit music. I'm like, man, put some old Wayne on. We ain't trying to listen to Detroit stuff. Y'all ain't much on the map yet, but you're right. Y'all have changed.
Was playing Royce the 5'9" and all them, you know what
Yeah.
I
Oh,
mean?
that's good. So tell me a little bit about, man, your reason why you started to become a nonprofit organization community leader.
Yeah, I think that, the reason why I pursued sort of the nonprofit was just, my own experience, right? I grew up in Detroit, as you sort of like identify here. But, again, there were 14 of us, and my mama passed away sort of unexpectedly. It was just my dad and the rest of us. And so, we're in a 3-bedroom house, you know what I mean? So it wasn't a whole lot of room. And so my dad was like, when you turn 18, you got a couple of choices. That's military, college, or leave to have a family of your own. And so, I was a high school dropout, and my dad was just kind of like, bro, you gotta get up out of here. And so when I turned 18, he had me leave, and made a few mistakes along the way. Didn't know about money and credit and all those, how to live independently on your own. And so I wasn't prepared for that. And so, ended up getting evicted from 2 of my spaces, and one point living out of my car, doing the couch surfing thing with my homie Sean, and so that experience sort of like, shaped sort of like the work that I'm doing today, and it was it was at that moment in my life where I was like, something needs to change. And so when I was 23, I finished my high school equivalency and then went on from there, right? And so, when I got to California, watching students here just kind of struggling to kind of get their basic needs met. And they were kind of not finishing college and not getting through college. And we'd always believed that the reason was because folks weren't able to sort of like handle the rigor of college level work. But that wasn't really the case. The case was that, folks are struggling, trying to get their basic needs met. Like, where am I going to live? I don't have enough food to kind of get to power me through my classes. And so, I wanted to make a more significant, and direct impact to sort of like change the outcome. And so I figured that I'd create LA Room and Board as a way to neutralize, homelessness and hunger as a tool for college completion. So we can make sure that folks can get through school. We know that college doesn't solve everything, right? We know that it isn't like the cure all, but it is the most reliable way to kind of get people into the middle class. And so we're trying to do what we can to make sure that we can kind of create that pathway. So that's why I created LA Room and Board, bro.
That's amazing. And which he was in a park, he was in your bedroom, he was driving, listening to some music. Where were you when the idea hit?
Oh, I was actually in class. I was reading this book by a professor out of UCLA named Dr. Mike Rose. May he rest in peace. I got a chance to sort of meet him virtually before he passed away. But he had this book called Back to School, Why Everyone Deserves a Second Chance at Education. It was like profiling these 8 students. They were like current and former foster youth, formerly incarcerated youth, LGBTQIA plus, immigrant youth, you know what I mean? Single parents, all struggling to get through community college in LA through some of the most insane situations, right? And circumstances, but still showing up to class week after week. And I was like, dang, I want to do something to sort of support them. And having that experience at Cal State Northridge where you sort of watching it sort of have a front row seat to the struggle. And I was like, that was the moment I read that book. And it was just kind of the lights came on for me, right? And that was the moment. It was in September of 2015 when I first had the idea.
Yeah. 2015, the idea was on you and weighed heavy on you that this is moment about to change not just my life but multiple kids' lives. And you've been in the shoes of kids that are homeless, trying to fight to go and get an education at community college. And much of these kids some of them are in state, but a lot of them are out of state. Coming all across the United States like you did to pursue a dream. And for you, 5 years later, from 2015, you started your LA Room and Board. What went into play to you starting it? Why was Los Angeles such a prominent space for you to begin your nonprofit?
Yeah, I think that LA was just kind of where my eyes became open. It was where I got enlightened about the issue. I think, a third of more than 2/3 of the country's, I think it's a third of the country's sort of homeless population exist in California, right? And so it is really hard to sort of ignore the issue of homelessness if you're living in Los Angeles, if you're living in San Francisco, if you're living in the state of California. You cannot ignore it. It is effervescent. It's everywhere, right? And so I think that, deciding to sort of do this work in LA really was just about trying to be a good Angelino. This is my 10th year living here, and this is home for me. And so it was kind of hard to sort of and seeing every kind of manifestation of it. You see, you're driving around the city, you see folks in tents, you see folks living on the streets, sleeping in RVs and cars. And then on college campus, you see folks sleeping in cars or bouncing from shelter to shelter. And so doing this work here in LA is just, it made sense for me because it was where I got sort of I was confronted with the issue and where I felt, this deep sense of empathy and compassion for it, especially for folks who are trying their level best to kind of improve their lives, right? And so, if we're looking at it as a pipeline issue, if we don't sort of wrap our arms around students now and youth now between that, critical age of 18 and 24, then we risk them falling into more, acute homelessness, right? And so if we don't sort of stop them where they're more malleable, where there's more promise, then I think that, I'm doing my part to sort of make sure that they don't become, and experience more chronic, versions of homelessness. And so that's why LA was important to me. It was where I woke up in the world, for sure.
Yeah. No, it sounded like God had your calling card out in Los Angeles and showed your problem right there and there with your idea in 2015 of bridging that gap and saying, listen, this is the way you're going to take off, people's lives.
100%.
And there's 75,000 people homeless in Los Angeles right now, minimum. I want to talk about the funding. What do you think are the issues with funding a county like Los Angeles? And how does that go about? Because you see homelessness not getting better, no matter how much the money is spent on this area, on this issue, really. And it's been like that for a long time. And I remember being at UCLA, I used to give, whether it's a burger or fries, or if I have a few bucks in my hand, I would just give it to a homeless person. But hearing a story also, which was important to me, I found out, man, my 4 years at UCLA, a lot of these homeless people are actually smart and brilliant. They just didn't have a path or guide or help right? Maybe they didn't have housing, maybe they didn't have food, so it took them off path to where they had to work. Maybe work stressed them out from studying, but these are some brilliant people, and you talk to them, they're just like us, man, and they're kind. Some of them are, hard-headed and stuck in their own ways, but for the most part in that area in Westwood, these were some brilliant people that said, listen, man, I just made a few bad mistakes trying to study and pursue, but here I am, because maybe they're from Pennsylvania or New York. Why is that a problem to where they're studying, or maybe they're doing a craft like art or music to where they just fall off and they become homeless? But not only that, they stay homeless in Los Angeles. Why is that such a problem? Why is it you see so many people homeless around Los Angeles that are actually educated?
I think there's a lot of reasons, man. Like, to your the first part of the question about the funding, right? Like, and I think that, it's really, if folks are really paying attention, there's been a lot of funds, I think, that have been allocated to trying to solve the issue, but it's a systemic issue, so you think about like systems theory, right? Like, there isn't one thing that is going to happen, right, that is going to solve it, right? That we, do a lot of sloganeering around like homes and homelessness. Sure, that does, but that isn't the only thing that we need to sort of like change in order to sort of make things better, right? I want to congratulate, honestly, like our elected officials, our public officials, our civil servants who are working hard to make a difference in the lives of people. And I'm just going to throw a number out that kind of gives you an idea of like what the struggle is. Like, for every 100 people that we lift out of homelessness, that we give a house to, that we give, shelter or to, right? 150 fall into homelessness, right? And so no matter how hard we work to sort of like get folks off the streets or get them into permanent supportive housing or interim housing, or, give them the tools they need to sort of like, get to self-sufficiency, we have a system that exists that allows more and more people to fall into homelessness. Like the fact that wages are flat. We just got to, a couple of years ago, we were fighting for 15 to get minimum wage moved to $15 an hour. Still isn't enough to afford the fact that, a 1-bedroom apartment is costing you around north of $2,000 a month. Right. And so, you have to work more than 40 hours at $15 an hour to sort of afford that kind of rent. That's not including utilities or any of your other living expenses. So wages are flat, right? Then there's not enough of, like, on the production side, there aren't enough available units of housing, right? And I think we need something like, I don't know, greater than 40, 50,000, more units, right? To sort of like make a dent in what we need. And then of the houses that get produced, enough of them are not affordable, right? And we're doing this in this very incremental way. Like, say there's a luxury or a high rise that gets built in downtown LA, through the use of different sort of like tax benefits, et cetera. Developers are saying, we'll have to set aside a very small percentage of the units to be affordable, right? So you build 80 units and then 8 will be affordable, right? And so if we're, building housing and like with 8 units of affordable housing at a time, like we'll never sort of like cause this problem, right? And then, so there are a lot, but oftentimes and then you have folks like neighborhoods that are more affluent that don't want housing built in their neighborhoods, right? And so, that not in my backyard sort of like mentality. So there's so many dynamics at play, but oftentimes because we're a world that only can process information in microbits, and sound bites, it's just easy sort of like to pin the issue on our elected officials, but they're the ones working hardest, to be honest with you, to try to make a change. No one ever faults, corporate America, right? And the private sector for like, well, why aren't you guys paying people more? Mm-hmm. Why aren't people paid higher salaries that can keep up with the rising cost of living? But we target sort of like LASA and the city for not. Why aren't you doing more? It's like, well, why is this a systems issue? People need to be paid more, right? Housing needs to be more affordable. No one's targeting them. And so I think that the issue is complex. And oftentimes in this filled with, a lot of just myths, like, that people move to California because it's warm. You know what I mean? That's a small percentage of folks. Like, no one says, I'm going to move over there because if I'm going to live on the streets, I'm going to do it by the beach. Like, it's not real. It's not a real thing. Right. What is more the case is that, like, people move to LA to pursue dreams like the entertainment industry and anything else they want to pursue in life. And it's hard. It's hard for Angelinos. It's hard for transplants to make it in this town. And so I know I'm talking long, but I just wanted to sort of like underscore that the problem is complex, and then therefore the solution needs to be complex and comprehensive, right? But yeah, and then homelessness doesn't just look like Skid Row, like the most, again, chronic, acute presentation of it. You got folks that like you experience in Westwood that are unhoused, and then they look just like you and I. You wouldn't be able to tell, right? You got folks living all the way from sleeping on someone's couch or their car, all the way to sleeping in the tent, and there's everything in between, right? So it's a very diverse issue.
Yeah, no, I definitely see. I want to hear from you. Why was it so diverse, and where does the problem lay in between the dash of, hey, look, this is not just one problem. We have these schools, community colleges, which you serve, but a lot of the UCs, like geographically, they're in locations like UCLA, for example, is right down the street from Bel Air, like right down the street. So it's like, how do the government, when you have these hundreds of millions, $1 billion communities, how are you going to, like I told you, for me, my 600 square foot apartment was $2,200, bro, for 600 square feet. I could touch both.
What year was that? What year was that, Kenny?
This was 2016.
Right. And so
the rent went up another
exactly.
$75 the following year. And me, I'm on scholarship. So good. I get food on campus because I have a card to do swipes. Okay, good. But I'm like, man, I need to breathe. Like, what if I didn't have a scholarship? What if I only had enough money for books because I'm an out-of-state kid? So that's another thing, issue is like, that tuition wasn't there for being an in-state kid for me. But I'm like, man, honestly, I don't understand how is a 600 square foot place. I can't much share this with 2 roommates if I could, but how is this so expensive? And for people that's going to community college, they have to sleep in their car, right? Or they have to sleep by a friend. But then if you're a girl, that's so much different because now you run into safety issues, right? Girlfriend got a boyfriend, bring some friends over, so now you become into those issues. But it's really a big problem. I didn't know that one of the reasons was because of the rising in rents that's there available.
Think about it. You're in college, and you have an apartment that is north of $2,000 a month. Do you know, like in order to afford that kind of rent, like you're on scholarship, right, which is a blessing, but most students, cannot afford that. You have to be making upwards of $90,000 a year to be able to afford that. Like, well, how many 18, 19, 21-year-olds can afford that while being a full-time student?
Less than 10%, way less than 5%. It's unless you got money given to you, it ain't really happening.
It's not happening, right? And so then say, like you said, like UCLA is located in Westwood, which is like right next door to Bel Air, Beverly Hills, the whole nine. And so if you go to Santa Monica College, which is like not too far away, how do you afford to live near your campus, right? It's just really, really difficult. And so I think that like what we're doing right now is underscoring and sort of like setting up why for people who don't understand the issue. It's complicated, especially for this demographic that we serve, which are community college students and youth aged 18 to 24.
Yeah. So your LA Women Board nonprofit started in 2020. What was the steps like for that? Because I'm sure no one gave you the hat of, hey, look, this is how you become a community builder. This is how you become a nonprofit leader. What was that process like, saying, okay, on the business structure side, how do I set myself up where I have a platform or a program presented to the government and tell them, hey, look, I need housing, but also I need students and I need service, but also I need funding to fund my vision, which now you said, I think when it first started, your first opportunity house in 2020, I think you only had like 50 bedrooms house. Now you're at a place where you're going to almost close to 200 students. And now you have 4 opportunity houses in Los Angeles. How do you go to the government and say, listen, this is all I'm asking for to fit my vision? How did that go and play for you in 2020 and starting your nonprofit and housing kids?
Yeah, so in 2019, so I had a good partner, who like was extremely supportive of my vision, named Andres, and he is an attorney. And so as I was talking about sort of like the work that I wanted to do, And so he was the one who sort of like set us up and formed the nonprofit and helped me file the paperwork with the IRS. And so, we gained 501c3 status because, he invested in the work that we're doing in that way. And so we were able to sort of like have the structure that we needed. And so, but once you sort of become a nonprofit, then you become eligible for obviously not just funding from the government, but also from, private individuals and foundations, right? And so, so that is so how we were able to sort of get the funds to do the work. But like asking and lobbying the government for those funds, I mean, that part isn't as complicated, right? That is really just about, applying for any grants that they may, or any responding to any, RFPs, requests for proposals that they might put out, right? Because they're always looking for partners and providers to sort of do the work. But they understand, rightly so, that we're in a crisis. The county board of supervisors and the mayor of LA have both now declared homelessness an emergency. You know what I mean? And so I think that, so that's that part. But I think that in order to sort of accomplish that, you need to have the structure, right? And so how we were able to form the nonprofits, because my partner, using his expertise, knowledge as an attorney, helped me form the nonprofit and not just like, getting 501c3 status, but then all of the related sort of like documentation and registering with the state and the county and the city and it's a lot of work, right? And if you don't have anybody in your corner that is knowledgeable about all those processes, it can be overwhelming. But I feel blessed to have Andres for sure.
Yeah. No, it sounds like God will just give you angels of invitation, man, of help along the way, as it sounds like. I think that's one of the issues, man. I think college students have it hard because, like I told you before, you're juggling multiple eggs in one basket. On one hand, you have your college educational space of studying, having a safe space to study, really, because if you study in the car on side, the 405 or underneath the 405, that's hard. That's hard,
It's hard.
So you have the education pursuits, you have your work life because you have to work, but also you have your social life and, young lady, young guy in a community college, trying to finish their degree, they back home helping a lot of people. How have you seen that you providing LA Room and Board an opportunity for them to be able to have a safe space to not only live, but also learn, but also combine that community aspect together for these community college kids?
Yeah. And so, I mean, thanks for asking, man. That's the essence of what we do, Kenny. We exist to neutralize homelessness and hunger, again, as a tool for college completion. And how we do that work is, we provide 3 meals a day to each of our youth and our students. We have an incredible team that wraps their arms tightly around our youth and providing sort of like just stuff like mental health and wellness, right? Financial literacy and planning, job readiness and career development, academic success and college completion, doing weekly case management to make sure that they're grounded and that their goals to self-sufficiency, right? Or to college completion, that they happen, right? So you having these caring adults in your life who want to see you win, right? Who are, doing intentional, thoughtful work about how to get people to a better place. That is the magic. That's the transformative work, right? And so we do that by trying to do that in community with our students and our residents, right? We try to do this. It's a very symbiotic relationship, right? And so we're trying to sort of like put together a program that that is reflective of their unique needs and their diverse needs. But also we try to like partner with them and say, what do you want to see happen in the experience, right? You're with us for almost 3 years. What do you need from us to be successful, right? Here's some things that we know that we can do that can inspire, success. But then, we do this in partnership with the youth that we serve. And it's a beautiful thing, man, to like you go into any one of our sites and watch our students sort of like thrive. They're doing a good thing. And we also try to do it just differently. What LA Room and Board has tried to sort of not do is make our spaces feel institutionalized, right? Instead, you walk into them, they're beautiful homes and beautiful buildings that inspire a sense of dignity, a sense of value and worth. And so I think that matters. Design matters. The kind of environment you build matters to their success. And I think that what we've tried to sort of really tap into that to make sure that we create places that are beautiful, that are conducive to success and learning. But we do that with our incredible team. And if we didn't have, dedicated professionals who care deeply about the issue, we wouldn't make a difference, right? And so it's not just about having a shelter. We're not a shelter. It's not just about having a roof over your head. It's about having a place that you can live, you can learn, you can grow, right? And then we do that with some incredible teams. So yep, that's how we do it.
I remember it was right after we was breaking the COVID bubble in 2020, 2021. You told me to pull up to the Opportunity House over in Westwood, right? I think the west side of UCLA, and got to greet your students, man. Walked in, toured everything. You gave me a world tour like it was your crib, which is beautiful. It is your crib, actually. I think one of the things that was most profound to me that I felt was the genuine and the thankfulness and how grateful these students were to have a place to share. Because when you talk to them, they have smiles on their face. They have a deep, genuine yearn for I don't know where else I would be if I didn't have this Opportunity House to help give me somewhere I could sleep at night just to go and study and make it to the next day. I think that's one of the things that your students have a challenge with is survival mode, right? It's not like you're in Maryland. It's not like you're in Detroit. It's not like you're in Louisiana. You're in Los Angeles, where I remember when I first went out there, I said, listen, as long as I go out there and stay focused and disciplined and don't let those things out in Los Angeles turn me away from who I am as a core person, being from the South of Louisiana, I think I'm gonna make it. And with that, I think with your kids coming to Opportunity House, I realized that they realized that I am so thankful for this moment, for this house, and for Sam, really, and really a community, because they don't know where they was at. I know a lot of those kids, they were sleeping in cars. Being at UCLA, I had a coach that would always tell me before I got there. He said, "Look, man, people in UCLA particularly, they sleeping in cars on a hill. UCLA, the campus, the dorms is on top of the hill from ground level, but you go up the hill at night, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, you see somebody with a blanket over their head sleeping in a car, with the laptop open." And when me seeing that, man, I said, ain't no way these kids are that passionate and it matters that much. Education matters that much to where they're sleeping in their cars. But with you, they're so grateful for you to give them a place to sleep. And I think I felt that, and I'm like, man, just wow. From the plants to the courtyard you have, bro, you have it going on. Right now, it looks like you're in Bel Air kitchen right now, somebody's house.
I'm at my house.
Right. But that's one thing that was shocking, man. Seeing the smiles and how the gratitude of those kids and how thankful they were just to have a shot at the Opportunity House. Because like you said, not everyone gets in. And that's one thing I want to talk to you a little bit about too, is what's the process like for a kid trying to get into an admission program to get into that Opportunity House? Is it automatically yes?
Most times, in most cases it is, right? Unfortunately, we still, have a waiting list, right? There at any given night in Los Angeles, as you know, there are 6,000 youth who are on the streets, right? Who don't have a place to, a safe place to sort of live, right? And so, I'm grateful for the growth that we've experienced over the last, 2-3 years, but still not enough to sort of keep pace with all the need that's out there, right? But how folks find us and how folks get to us, they'll go on the website and fill out an application, right? So that's the most direct way. But also, we have, two established sort of referral pipelines, one being the county of Los Angeles. And so if a youth is experiencing, homelessness or hunger, in central Los Angeles, then they'll refer them directly to us, right? But then we've also established with each of the college campuses, all the college campuses have a basic needs office, right? And so these staff in those offices are responsible for supporting students who are experiencing hunger and homelessness, right? And so if a professor, for example, is like, hey, I got this kid named Kenny, showed up to an exam today. He didn't do very well on it. And then I hadn't seen him in 3 weeks. And then when I talked to him after class, I learned that, that Kenny's living in his car, or living in the shelter. And then that professor then, that's here's that story from a student, and then they refer them to the basic needs office. We have relationships with each of those offices. And so they'll call us and say, hey, Sam, we have this guy named Kenny, who's at UCLA really struggling. Can we send him to you? And we're like, of course. And so, so either the county will make the referral to us, or the schools and colleges will make those referrals to us, or folks will find us directly on our website. But we don't do any outreach, right? Because if we did, it would just feel irresponsible, given that there are thousands and thousands of people who need, housing. And then if we're promoting it, and then having to say, no, there's no room for you, right? And so, hopefully, God willing, he keeps sort of blessing us, and we can kind of acquire more spaces so that we can say yes far more often than we are currently saying no to folks, because we just don't have all the space. And so yeah.
So how does that go? They just have to find another housing situation,
Yeah.
or is it a they're a waiting line, wait list for that process going?
Yeah.
And when did they have to start that to start school? Let's say to start fall school.
Yeah, I mean, we do it like it's rolling, right? And so as folks kind of transition out, we're constantly sort of like having conversations with folks about, who are in need, right? But yeah, and then when we can't help folks, then we refer them to, our partners and who are also doing this work, and the county sort of like, is a partner in that and trying to get folks tracked to, an available bed. But yeah, man, like I said, like even if there were 20 more nonprofits, like ours that just came out that were to start today, still isn't enough. You got again 6,000 youth that are experiencing homelessness now. So there's just not enough folks in the game, sort of like trying to make a dent in that, man. And so we need more providers, and we need more housing for sure.
Housing is one thing. The hunger side. Some houses they might don't have the budget for that. The hunger. How do you help the youth with or I guess should there be more institutions or more facilities that's giving out food to feed these kids? Because how do you even budget or balance feeding the hunger but also doing homelessness at the same time to college students?
Yeah, like a companion to being unhoused is also being hungry, right? 2/3 of students, have reported skipping meals and not having enough food to eat to kind of power them through classes, right? And so, we do it by, we have to raise money. All this is about, I'm constantly sort of like, raising funds and sharing the story of the work that we do to anyone who listen, particularly those who have resources to give, to sort of say, hey, we have to, we can't expect that someone's going to kind of be, focus on being a great scholar when your stomach is like growling and rumbling because you haven't eaten, right? And so we do it by providing, 3 meals a day. We have a team of chefs that cook fresh meals, each day, and they're served directly to our youth. And so I feel fortunate for that team, to sort of, be there and support students in that way. But then other providers do it in more creative ways. Like there are amazing organizations like Every Table, that do sort of like meal service. And so, they're like prepackaged meals that are made fresh and are healthy. And then all you have to do is sort of warm them up. And then there are lots of programs, that you can partner with, for fresh produce, right? There are lots of organizations that exist to sort of like make sure that we aren't experiencing, insane amounts of food waste. And so, you get creative. Like at the Opportunity House, for example, we have that chef's kitchen, right? And so if we're partnering with a food pantry that has extra breads and produce and stuff, and so we can kind of get creative with them and cook the food that they have, right? And so but yeah, like 100%, they are inextricably linked, right? Homelessness and hunger, right? And so you got to make sure that you can provide, the food that folks need to sort of like power them through.
Wow, yeah, that's amazing, man. How does that make you feel? Like, do you sit at night sometimes before you're about to go to bed and shut your eyes and be like, God, like, thank you in so many ways, or more like, look, I still don't feel like that next level that I'm getting to, I don't feel like I'm there yet, but is it more of a working pieces of the pieces not being together that also drives you? What drives you at night, but when you wake up in the morning at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I feel two things, right? I feel an extreme sense of like um pride, right? Pride in this work because I think that I'm proud of what we built and proud of the team that we have. But I feel a lot of humility that I feel, just like, wow, I get to do this. I was at the house at one of our sites called Dunamis House in Bull Heights last night. And it's so beautiful at night too, and so I walk away, I'm like, man, like, can't believe this is happening. And, what I mean? It happened so fast. And so I do feel these moments of like, man, this is really, really cool that we get to make the impact in this way, man. Like, it's just, when I started the Opportunity House, I had just turned 40. I moved into that space the day before my 40th birthday. And, it was like for the first time in my life, I felt like I had purpose, and it felt like, and I work hard. I have not had a vacation since we started, like room and board. And I feel like I don't feel tired. You know what I mean? Sometimes I feel like, man, I feel a bit exhausted some days, but that's just normal. But I never feel like mentally just like I hate my work or, like I never feel like I don't want to do more. I'm always thinking about what more can we do? What more can we do? What more can we do? So that's one way that I feel. The other way that I feel is like the enormous pressure of it and weight of it. Like, I have, 20 staff members who are depending on me to sort of like keep raising the money that we need to sort of keep it all going. I have 190 beds now. How do I, keep, resources coming so that all of our students are able to sort of get through life. And if they turn on that light, they don't have to worry about who's paying this bill. You know what I mean? And so like all that pressure is on me. So sometimes it feels like, oh, wow, I feel the full weight of this responsibility to sort of like keep it going. So I feel tremendous pride and gratitude, and I feel blessed to do it, but I also feel the pressure of like, oh, wow, people are depending on me in a way that like I've never felt before. Like in the other jobs when I've been the manager, I'm like, well, I'm just the manager here. At the end of the day, that's, this thing comes crumbling down. It ain't on me. It's above my pay grade. Right. Now this is like the buck stops with me. And so that's an enormous sort of like kind of pressure for sure.
No, that's that pressure when it's 4th and 1 and they're going for it. You're on defense and, you stop them and win the game or they get this first down and they move the chains, boy.
Yeah.
80,000 screaming. No, man, and listen, I honor so much the work you do, but also the passion is what I hear behind your drive, your commitment to this vision. I know it's not an ending vision because like you said, different things show up all the time. And, there is a lot of passion behind, doing a nonprofit on a level you're doing it at, right? And how much of that passion is like, part of it is pressure from external, but internal, that's a lot of passion goes into doing a nonprofit and evolving that process.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like the passion of it fuels me to sort of like do it. It brings me it brought me to the work, right? My own experience and, what I felt like no one should have to experience that. Right. And so you try to like pay it forward. But what kind of like kind of keeps me in it, man, is like the stories of our youth. Like we had 18 youth graduated, 18 students graduated, in the spring and the summer, right? Wow. One of our students got accepted into UC Berkeley, UCLA, USC, and Columbia. You know what I mean? Wow. Lived with us for 2 years and like just seeing like the difference it's making in their lives. And like, at an elementary school teacher may not be able to sort of like get it can feel sometimes thankless, right? Because when you're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old in the class, you're not able to sort of like fully perceive like, man, I'm really grateful for my instructor, or I'm really glad that, I'm smarter, I'm wiser, and my life has been changed because of the impartation of my teacher when I'm in grade school. But we're at an age where people are able to say in real time, wow, like this made a difference. Right. And so you see the return on that investment much quicker, right? When you're working with, folks at this age, 18 to 24, they're like, yo, Sam, I just got that, I was working with, one of the staff and they got me a job at so-and-so, so-and-so. So now I'm making $20 an hour and they're like excited about it. And like, you're able to see like, oh, shoot, like I'm watching their response. Now they're able to get their bills paid, save some money. And so those stories, these wins kind of like keep you like, oh yeah, I can do this all day. I don't care. I can do this 18 hours a day, very, very little sleep, because those stories, those wins with the students are like what fuel you, man. They become like literally the wind beneath your wings for sure.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, man. When I met you, man, I said this guy here got a spirit to him, boy. Because that's what you feel, man. And from Detroit, I think that's part, like you said, you alluded to your background. Detroit kind of shaped you in that way, and your own personal experiences allows you to get out in this world and really fight your fight. And sometimes you get jabbed one or two times. Mike Tyson said everyone got a plan till they get busted in the mouth. And you kind of expected, looking for that smoke, looking for those problems, but you wound up figuring it out. And I think Detroit had a big, deep uproot in you, striving to do the community work that you're doing, becoming a leader like yourself, and bridging that gap to create more leaders on a larger scale.
Yeah, man. I get it from my dad. I got to shout out my dad, man. Like watching him, Detroit, Midwesterners, man. I'm biased, man. People from the Midwest work hard. I think it's the snow and the cold weather, man. You still got to my brothers are carpenters, and they're like building things, and it's like -20 outside. And like, you just out there, like, so I think that it builds the Midwest cold climates, build a work ethic and a sense of industriousness in people that I think is just unmatched. So I shout out to Detroit, and my dad, 14 kids, and my mom, having to take care of all of us, working 13, 14-hour days at the Michigan truck plant, working for Ford Motor Company, on the assembly line, like never stopping, never, having all the responsibility of all these kids. And, people have 1, 2 kids, and they disappear from their lives. And when my mom died, it was all 14 of us, and my dad kept pushing, man. And so I think I get my work ethic and that drive from him, and that was Detroit bred. And so I shout out to my roots for sure.
Yeah, no, persistent leader, man, very persistent. Accountability. How important accountability is for you in the work that you do, and holding your college students up on their part on being accountable as well to make this dream really flourish and in proper form.
Yeah, I think that that's always a tricky part, right? Because I think that when we get our youth and our students, man, like they're coming to us, like, again, immigrant youth, or coming out of the criminal justice system, or, you got kicked out of your house because your parents learned that you're gay or trans or whatever, or, or you were in foster care, and you've like gone from like house to house to house to house. And so you've been in, so now you don't trust adults, you don't trust, you know what I mean? Like you've never been made to feel like any home is your home, because you've bounced from place to place to place. And so when we first get our youth, we are sort of like unpacking all of that, right? Like getting them like to like all the hurt, all the pain that they have experienced and felt, or all that struggle. So like now, like you're here, you can sort of like exhale,
be excited about life.
Yes, without all of the noise and all the trauma, right? And so we spend our first part of our experience with folks sort of like level setting, right? Getting to a place where we can kind of say, no, life has been tough, but here you can breathe here. Like we are rooting for you, and we're going to do everything we can to set you up for success, right? Then, so then we try to say, okay, now here's some goals, right? So now we're going to co-create them with you. Right. And I think that part of that is like our staff, like we have a team of folks who've been there, right? Who've been there, who've come through this, have lived experience, and they are successful in their own right. Right. And so like, you got people who are poured into the lives of our youth and our students who've walked their journey, right? Who walked their paths. And so that's a big part of it. Right. And I think that our students can respect that, it gives them something to aspire to. Right. But then, we try to just do some creative, goal setting, and we do that collaboratively with the youth. So that way we aren't saying, here's what you're going to do these things. People are more inclined to sort of like achieve a goal when they helped to create that goal. Right. There's a difference between like your parents, your parents sort of like yelling, say, you make sure these dishes are clean, and make sure my house is clean, and do that laundry and do your room, then you just sort of like taking orders, right? And no one feels good taking orders, right? But then imagine your mom, your dad saying to you, "All right, Kenny, all right, so let's figure out the plan for how we're gonna keep the house clean." So, how often do you think that would you want to see the laundry done? And at what point do you feel like we should do it before before your clothes reek like a sewer? You know what I'm saying? Like, at what they start saying, "Oh, well, I get some voice in this. I got some agency in this." Then you're like, "Mom, okay, I think we should do laundry twice a week." That feels a lot different than being like, "Kenny, do the laundry right now." Right. And so when we're creating that sense of buy-in with our residents and our youth about what their goals are, I think that accountability becomes much easier. But that first part about it is just like unpacking the trauma and getting them to a place where they can sort of like be all right and get grounded. And then we sort of like kind of create that goals and build the accountability in it with them, right? And say, all right, I'm gonna check on you in 2 weeks. And every 2 weeks, let's look at how you're saving, right? But also give them the tools. Like, one thing that I love about you, man, like you, that first year, bro, you partnered with me, man. Like, and then like you invested your own money. So I know this isn't, you're supposed to be interviewing me, but I'm gonna sing your praises for a second. You invested your own money, got with those gift cards and, incentivizing folks to come, bro. Like you gave our students real tools about credit, about saving, about how to manage their money, and to the point about accountability, we can't do it without great partners like you. But also giving them the tools they need to sort of like make better choices. Right. So now I can hold you accountable to sort of like saving money now because we had Kenny come in for 12 weeks and talk about it. Right. And so it's hard to hold you accountable to, I'm like, I don't know anything about saving. I know nothing about credit. So why are you holding me accountable to a thing I don't know how to do? And so, when you came in, bro, you kind of, you made the difference in that way, right? So now we can say we learned this on Saturday with Kenny, right? And so, hey, do better. You know what I mean? And so, yeah. So I think that to accountability, again, unpacking the trauma together, getting them settled, getting them level set, and then kind of creating those goals with them.
Man, how important it is to create a safe space for these really strangers. They coming from different backgrounds and put them all in one setting. The setup at the Opportunity House or any one of your homes that you have, the young ladies are on one side of the building and the guys are on the other side.
Yep.
And they only come together when what is community building time, where it's courtyard stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's like a co-ed dorm, right? Like it's just co-ed by a room, and so we expect that like, hey guys, that folks should sort of like stay separate in their sleeping quarters, but there are lots of common spaces, right? And so in the common spaces, then everybody's there, right? And so yeah, so it's just like it would be in the dorms. You know what I mean?
Are any of them allowed to date each other?
I mean, we always say if it's true,
that question.
if it's true love, it can wait. But
It's true love is can wait.
they don't. They'll start dating, and that becomes, and then when you start having a little bit of relationship drama, then it becomes our issue. You know what I mean? Yeah, it happens. It happens all the time.
Okay, I say we're human, man. Stuff come and go, feelings come and go all the time, and
Right.
we're in a big sector of an ecosystem. Wow, that's amazing, bro. Listen, to the point when you mentioned about us joining together, partnering together, I think I told you this before. I was adopted, and I remember literally. I think that's why I do what I do since this moment, and that moment was I came home in the projects in country town, Louisiana. Come home in the projects. I look in the window. I'm like, wait, why the hell is my bed moved out my room? I knock on the door. Mom ain't answering. So I'm like, what the hell going on? My mom raised me at this part of time of my life. So I go in the backyard. She's in the backyard putting the clothes on the line. At this time, she didn't have no dryer. So she put the clothes on the line and let it dry off. And she was like, well, son, we have to figure it out. I got evicted. Can't pay the rent. We have to figure this out. And I said, well, what about me? What am I going to do? And she was like, well, we have options, but you could come with me or, you could go stay by a friend's house for now. And bro, I just started crying inside because I didn't have a father at that time. My dad was in and out of jail. My mom was there, but she was working most of the time. And my influence is bad influences. I'm hanging out with kids that are 10 years older than me. They're trying different drugs, they sagging their pants, they on the street corner late at night for school. Like, I have bad examples and have nothing to turn to for guidance, for just a safe space or just to feel inside. But long story short, I had wound up moving in with my best friend. My mom got evicted. Our relationship has been different ever since then. But that was one moment where I'm like, man, not having a father is one thing, but losing your home, losing a place to sleep, losing a place where you got pictures on the wall where you grew up, the room that you got your butt whooped in, like all of that just crumbled for me inside as a kid. And I'm like, man, I have to figure this out on what I'm going to do, and I have to figure it out now. So by the time I got with my best friend, I was laying in the bed at one time, and I wrote out a list of 13 bullet points of what I wanted to do. And I wanted to go to school to get a football scholarship. I wanted 30 plus offers from every nation around. And I wanted to decide where I wanted to go and take on this journey to not feel like I'm never having a home again. So I wound up going to UCLA. Supposed to go to LSU, but that journey and that moment of feeling like that, man, is honestly, I had to run away from that moment, Sam. And I was working out. I wasn't doing drugs. I was working out twice a day. Man, I was running gas. It was like I'm running in my boxers sometimes at night, like 12 o'clock. Like, I'm going to find it because we don't have money, we poor, and I need to be the escape for my family. And sound like for you, you was doing that for yourself, but you was doing it for a tribe of people behind you, of college kids, which is far much more of a pressure than I had. But my point goes to be is that, man, listen, there are certain moments in our life dealing with homes or structure that really change us and allow us to chase this level of excellence. For me, sometimes, like you said, you go out to your facility and you look at night and see how beautiful it is and like, wow, like God actually presented this for me and we actually doing it. It's times where I have to go walk down the street and look at my house from afar and be like, man, look at you. You have multiple cars in the parking lot for your family. You have a huge house that extends, tremendous on the backside. You was once in a project, boy, evicted and had no guidance, no direction, had nothing but bad examples in front of you. And you could have life could have went south very, very fast for you. And those moments have changed my life. But listening to your story, when you told me about, these kids are homeless, I'm like, man, listen, I almost had an internal tear because it took me back to that moment for me as a kid, feeling hopeless, feeling left out, not feeling excited about life, and those kids shouldn't feel that. I think that's the main point is like, you should not, 18 between 24, feel this type of way. But you can use it as an opportunity to grow, to change your life. And I think that's what you presented for these kids. So I just want to say, man, round of applause on your back for that. And that was my personal testimony story to, kind of what I've been running from my whole life. And that's been being, without a home, being without paying the rent. Like that doesn't fit for me. And I don't want my family doing that as well. But sometimes those night walks really help me set in on how far I've come from that moment as a boy, fighting for my dreams every single day.
100%, man. Kenny, listen, your story, man, is a triumphant one, bro. And you care enough to pay it forward, bro. And that's the most important part is like that the punctuation on that is like you still find that the time to sort of like make sure that other folks don't experience. I think that any of us who have lived in poverty, you have that sort of like that poverty demon that just be, that you always running from, like, I'm never going to be, no, I never want to be in that situation ever again, right? Because it's like, that's just not a good way to live or to feel. And so I feel like there's this like, I don't know, this anxiousness that we sometimes feel about like, make sure that we're always good. And even when we are, we're like, am I really good? You sort of try to question like, will it wait, but like, is the floor going to, fall out from up under me and everything comes crashing down, right? But I think that the way that I think that we stay blessed is like by making sure that we can sort of like lift others up. And you've done that. And I think it's a blessing to sort of be doing what I'm doing. I count that blessing every day, man. And so but I think that you're right, housing is so fundamental. We don't have home. you can't be successful in anything else you're doing if you don't have that safety and security of a place to live, man. And I think that is resonant, and it's like consistent through both of our stories, and I think that the beautiful thing is that being able to sort of like say, all right, I went through that and I'm gonna make sure that no one else has to. So
Absolutely. Well, thank you, man. Thank you for being on my show. Thank you for talking, dropping some gems. Thank you for taking us a day in the life of what your situation is, man. You're a community leader, bro. You're persistent. You're a hero to a lot of kids. And I only see you ascending from this place that God had you at already. So thank you for being on the show, brother.
my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me, Kenny.
Thank you, man. I'll talk to you.
Yes, sir.
All right, buddy.